on the approach on to onboarding. I'm Savita Vijayan and from People Matters, and I would be taking you through the agenda for today's webinar. We have the privilege of having with us Gurpreet Singh Bajaj, Head Learning and Development, MakeMyTrip.com. I'd like to give you a little about the L&D Leadership League before we start on with the webinar. This is an initiative for the first time to bring together the best-in-class practitioners in the L&D space, the learning and development space. This is a People Matters initiative in partnership with CCL, Cornerstone, Great Lakes Institute of Management, and CIMA, which is aimed at promoting knowledge enhancement and development of this esteemed group. First of all, I'd like to give you a little brief about today's webinar. As the topic suggests, this webinar will address how new approaches in onboarding can bring transformation. We will discuss on the role of technology and gamification in introducing new approaches for onboarding and how the onboarding process can be enhanced further. A little about today's speaker. Gurpreet heads the Learning and Development function at MakeMyTrip.com. He has over 12 years of experience and has led HR, organizational development, and L&D teams in MNCs like American Express, Ernst & Young, Baxter, and W. Centis. The partners for his L&D Leadership League webinar are CCL, Center for Creative Leadership, Cornerstone On Demand, Great Lakes Institute of Management, CIMA, Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, who help us make this program absolutely possible. We have saved time for the end of the session so that you can ask questions. For those watching the webinar, you can post your questions during the presentation through the Q&A section. We'll try and respond as many as questions that come our way and time allows. We have a full exciting agenda for the webinar today. So without any further delay, I'm going to hand over the microphone to Gurpreet. Over to you, Gurpreet.
Thanks, Savita. Good morning, everybody, and thanks for joining in. Pleasure to have connected early morning. So as Savita mentioned, thanks for this opportunity. In fact, Savita, for sharing what we are doing at Make My Trip with respect to employee onboarding. So without any delay, what I'll do is I'll run through a PowerPoint which basically summarizes. Because it's gamification, I've tried to make it not very content heavy and give you some insight on how the actual initiative runs as well. So you'll probably get to see some more pictures than text, or at least equal amount, so that you probably have a look at what happens here, which best done in pictures, as they say. So I'll run through the PowerPoint. Maybe we can target about half an hour max, or 20-25 minutes of what I have shared. And I think for the session to be useful for all, maybe we can have more of interactions where we can answer questions and share perspectives on that front. Hope that will be helpful. Savita, does that work?
Absolutely.
Yeah? Okay. So do I need to share, or can we see the file, everybody?
We can see the file.
Can see the file. Great. Good to. Technology always makes you equally nervous as it makes you excited. Yeah. Okay, cool. So we'll one. So I'm Gurpreet Bajaj. So I head talent development and also take care of the new employee inductions process, as well as culture change at Make My Trip. So it all started. Now, as you can see on the slide, you can see a branding on top which says Trip On. Now, this is what rebranded the whole onboarding experience at Make My Trip. So how it all started was we had some key focus areas where we thought, when I joined Make My, honestly, that was about 2.5 years back. I worked with very, very formal and wonderful organizations before, American Express, Ernst & Young, Medical Device, Baxter, Healthcare. So one thing I've always worked and been always interested is that, okay, how was my day one there in all the companies? But that's one thing which I think I've not forgotten. I'm sure it's true for all of you. And somebody told this, which I think got stuck in my head, that maybe the 2 big days you remember about any company, even if you worked for 1 or 10, are actually your first and last days. You don't actually forget them, which I thought was quite powerful. And we being the people owners, and probably we don't give that much of weightage to such a big opportunity of making that connect. So this is what we thought at Make My Trip. I didn't make my trip first day. I think was bad, honestly. I perceived Make My Trip to be very cool, young, energetic company, technology driven. These were the big reasons why I joined Make My Trip, and of course the company was, and it was great, and it is great working out here. However, as employee, I did feel that, well, if I only had to attend day one at Make My Trip and then never come back, would the organ be the same what actually I saw at day one? Does my day one experience let me know what the company is all about? So which the answer was no, and I was telling myself, okay, get over the day one. It's okay, boring presentations and form fillings and the same ID card, and you're taken around the whole office like a cattle. So which I said, okay, maybe things are better, and they did go better, which means the internal processes, the work, the excitement, the innovation, the technology, the freedom, the the age group I work with is very young, all kind of flew, but unfortunately it didn't hit me on day one, and that's where I thought was a big disconnect, where we might not be using this opportunity to sell ourselves and instill more confidence in the newcomers. Like these things don't connect together. It's like you're meeting your dream partner, but have a horrible day one, and later to realize that, oh, actually he or he is not that bad. But we know that from an employee's perspective, we don't get that much of time as we get in a marriage. So, in fact, some of the research do suggest that, good about more than 60-70% of your folks uh, decide in their 6 months whether they are in or not, and that's constantly what they are thinking. So we thought how important it is to first make the day one experience more memorable, and not just leave it to day one, but also have an overhauling of how we support the newcomer in a fast-paced company like us, where the culture is fairly on the face, the demands and the recognition as well as the expectations are high, and so it's a high risk, high reward situation. So all this we thought, and we said, let's see if all of this connects. Can we put our DNA on day one, first of all? So one is a joining connect. So we said we're speaking a lot on day one, but what we decided was actually start zeroing on our prospective family member before he actually joins. That's more administrative, but we've already made a call and did a handshake with somebody to join. So I think it's like, you lock a wedding with somebody. You're not the sweetest on the wedding day, but you start doing a lot of stuff before you've already decided the person is on your family. So why not here? So we say, okay, let's start throwing some, and I picked this up from I think a university. I think one of my colleagues got through a university in US, and it was very cool. I think it was Darden, and it's very cool. He said, boss, I've got this admission. I said, that's nice. And he said, hey, see, look what I've got. I've got like very nice emails. I've got a video where the dean is talking to me and talking about how excited they are to meet me. And it was very personalized. And I thought that was a great way to bond with the student before he even comes in. So we did something. So what happened was we looked at pre-joining. So the area of focuses were employee branding and connect, as you could see, the culture sensitization, and some basic communication to kickstart. And more on an informal round, not too formal language, because that's not what the culture here is, which I think can change company to company. Then day one. Day one, I had focused on two things. One was the how factor, and the other was the wow factor. Now, what I got when I joined Make My Trip was probably the hows, that I got to know who's who and what to do and where and what. But I didn't really get the wow. I said, okay, I mean that's not delighting me as an employee. That's giving me all the information. So we thought that, okay, let's do both. While we look at the wowing and the fun part of it, which is core to our culture, let's also ensure that the information part doesn't get missed. The certain pieces which need to be driven down seriously still do. At the same time, you don't just do it sitting like a duck the whole day, but actually do the way we work here. So we said, okay, consistent, memorable experience. Consistent is a big word here because we are spread across different parts in the country. We've got people joining in retail outlets, And there's often been a debate on how the corporate office employees do get a better understanding, response, recognition, welcome, and the feeling is not same. Though I, endorse and though I kind of propagate the same brand. So we said, okay, we has to be consistent. Critical information like operational policies, everything which needs to know. So we refurbished some information basis feedback and said, okay, just write down what you need for the new joiner. Don't worry about how you're going to do it. Then the seamless handover of tools and facilities, which means your seating, laptops, V-cards, cabs, phones. It's like treating like a VIP as to that level that you don't need a CEO or a CFO or a CXO to join to do all this. I think any person joining your company is a part of your family and is a success story for you. So that's what I think is. So if you really see it, make my trip, the welcome is no different. You join in as a CXO, CFO, you join as an agent, you join as a finance guy, anybody. The experience is the same because we expect the same rigor from everybody. So that was same on every front. So not that you'll get a preferred quick seating if you are CXO and you're not, but we said, okay, let's make sure it's same for everybody there. And then the large important part was okay, maybe you can do yourself favor by grades, but that can be a ditch you may fall into because you may start with very high expectations, but if your post one day processes are not in place, it might actually backfire because you might be setting him up with a dream honeymoon and you come back home and reality bites. So we said, okay, let's also look at designing an onboarding map where we have clear roles of sales manager, onboarding team, which HR, clearly drafted, communicated well, and followed up. So we'll probably talk about what else is there inside. These were our key focus areas. So I think this will be important for all to hear. So what really changed from what we used to do before? All new hire joinings across the country, we ensure that everybody joins on a particular day for a consistent day one experience. Now, we did notice that there might be some logistical hassles in our retail outlets, like somebody joining on a Friday or a Saturday. We said, okay, let everybody join only by Wednesdays to ensure we've got a few days to wrap up the logistics and facilities of a person. And the guys here next month into the corporate office, even if you join anywhere in let's say an I branch, we said, okay, that called for an extra cost, but we thought that's worth it for a person to come and visit the corp office, see the office facilities, meet the leaders, and look at how big companies, which he's representing, because that disconnect we always feel that the big show of the corporate or the power circles of office, as you say, never get translated into an ego push for a person sitting far off. So we said, okay, let's let everybody come and see what they're representing once they go back. So Wednesday is a closing day. We said for finalizing next Monday joiners, standardized pre-join communication to build connect, which would be in terms of pre-joining emailers with all the forms which you can easily fill and don't spend too much time on day one. Let's spend more time in interaction and knowing more about what you've joined rather than filling your PF form for 2 hours. So we said all this can happen before he comes in. We've got a branded well kit, which we'll talk more about, what's inside that. That was the turn, I think, was a game changer. We thought of gamifying the whole induction program, loaded with, interactive quizzes, activities, badges to win, and it was really engaging. Now when you join Make My Trip, now interestingly, you don't see a projector, PowerPoint being thrown up to you. What you actually get is quite a nice iPad for day one. You can just go ahead and basically virtually do an app game where it takes you through an expedition to Make My Trip. History, leadership, journey, businesses, everything. Which content is not too different, but the presentation and the format is engaging. So from HR policies to what to do to some of the cool videos, employee videos from our town halls, leadership discourses, videos, connects. So all of that, it's like a different milestone. You go from one mountain to the other to go to the top. And to do it, imagine you just clicking one thing and, there's a Life at Make My Trip video shot at you. There is Deep Kalra, who is a CEO, group CEO, talking to you about, what he expects. And imagine next, there's a quiz popped up at to say, okay, do you know what's the Nasdaq symbol for Make My Trip? You've got four choices. Take hints, which will make you win lesser points than your colleagues. They can all see each other, like we can see each other on the chat window, exactly like that. So you can see the names and you can fill a bit of details about you, and you basically play that game against each other. It's not a race against him, so that people will have the time to go through what they have. But that's how you go through the whole journey. You win some, you lose some, you move ahead, and you get more information. And all this is also facilitated by trainers, where we said, okay, while we want to gamify, we don't want to kill the human experience as well. And you have a tab, you've got headsets, so each and you sit on a beanbag, so you probably see some good pictures going forward. You don't come at a boardroom at Make My Trip on day one. And we'll go more into that, but on a larger front, another change was the 30-60-day onboarding roadmap and guide, as I mentioned, with key milestones defined and followed up, and a feedback mechanism post 60 days, which we do, to gauge the success and opportunity area. So maybe I'll try to go more deep dive into a few. Welcome kit. So this includes a corporate branded folder or a jacket, welcome letter, all forms, which need to be filled on day one, only those, very few forms which we cannot mail in before. Rest all is done, and rest of the forms are brought by the candidates, but we keep some backup if anybody has missed that one. Branded apparel, so important to ensure that your company brand is accentuated, so we did invest in that. Contact list of the key people, notepad, pens, post-its, a new tripper badge, which he can flash on his workstation or on his apparel. Own extension list, workstation tag. Now this is like a big smiley with a fill in the blank, where he can actually write whatever name he wants to be called at, rather than a big name. So I won't probably write Gurpreet Singh Bajaj, I might call GB. So that's personalized, that he can take a shot himself and put it on his workstation. We do visiting cards so you don't wait for your visiting cards for a week. We get all your details before. In fact, it would be interesting if we can also what kind of visiting card we have. So before I joined, for season recruiter was asking me for my hobbies, and I said, okay, I like reading and photography. So guess what? My visiting card when I got on day one has my name, my designation, and it's like in the form of a website with 3 tabs, and each of the 3 tabs will represent what my interests are. So it said word nerd and I think photo blog. So it basically was for everybody on day one, which we, with help of our admin, I think do a fantastic job of giving that. And you of course get your tab headsets to run the game there. So that's all prepared when you get seated, rather than you being flown around for that. This is more into the game. So this is, as I mentioned, it's a social gamified introduction on iPads into everything about MMT's history, policy. So virtually what we did, we started with PowerPoint. We worked with an external vendor for this, and we actually gamified the whole thing. So your content doesn't really change, but it's the presentation which changes. You still have the opportunity to put few slideshows, but the format restricts you to not to put 100 slides. So that is the beauty of this, and you can convert a quiz or a, so you basically challenge that. How do you put all this information on PowerPoint in a question and an answer or on a quiz format? Then you have an opportunity to give him Factopedia. You can ask him a quiz. You can have some follow-up pictures for him to watch, and then he moves to the next one. So that took quite a lot of time, I guess. Not that much as I did, but still it took about 4 to 5 weeks for us to develop that. So basically that's the experience, and you get a 30-60 day onboarding guide, welcome kit, and a pre-joining communication. You can see some pictures down there. Now in the middle you can see, maybe we'll see bigger ones as we go forward. Now this I'm sure doesn't look like day one room company maybe, but this is how it looks here. So this is a big room which we have, which we call as Vegas. I think very interestingly named, and you could see the room. It's colorful, it's big, it kind of generates lot of energy, calls for a lot of comfort, I'm sure, for people who join rather than too much in the spot. And of course, it's not boring. I mean, you don't mind walking into this room as a surprise on day one of when you join a company there. So that's how the seatings are. There's an LCD at the back. There's a music playing when you come in. It's a samba music, which trainers make you have a jig when you come in for your introductions. You got markers, pens left over, and of course iPads to follow. This is a little close up. As I said, welcome to the world of gamified induction. So you don't look up, actually you look down and to yourself, and you've got your peer sitting next to you. So as you could see, maybe more closely, it has different stopovers. So it says company profile. One of them says welcome to Make My Trip. Then you have our values, then performance and rewards, talent development, salary benefits, HR policies, life at Make My Trip. So something, this is not too different, but as you could see, it's something, but presented it in an interesting way. This is how you start off, and some more. So there you can have links. So all our games have links to outside world. So for example, we make them go through our website through when we talk about business. So parallelly, you're also run through what we are all about, and we don't redo a lot of content. So for example, a lot of stuff is there on your website, very well done. There's no point pushing all that content in your game, but we have that as a hyperlink. Because you're on an iPad, you can actually do that and answer the question, and that also helps you navigate either through the Make My Trip website or links to your own intranet. And yeah, Kushal, so as you play, you could see now he's answering a question, and I think that question is match the following brands or logos to, these are basically our acquisitions. So it's one of our acquisition questions that, okay, you match them with the events as they happen. So he's trying to drag and drop the logos and the names of the company. And once he finishes, a quick Factopedia follows, which will have more information about when and how those things happened. These are more pictures. See the ones in red. So those are the trainers who basically engage the participants once they come in. So it's not just sit in a corner and you play that iPad game, because that can be really disengaging after a while. But we actually start off quick activity. There's a music playing at the background, and that's how you start up, and you've got similar energizers in the middle. Some more pictures. Scavenger hunt, another way. Remember, we were taken to an office tour, almost in every office on day one. I don't think I've ever remembered where am I being taken, and the fact that I hate to be taken anywhere, because I thought that, especially with 15 people together, I don't even know what somebody's talking about. So we said, okay, we rather do that at Taj Mahal when we go, but not at the office. But let me find out myself, because I anyway have to do it, and let it be fun. So we said, okay, we basically empower people to find it on their own, and we've got enough sweet people on the floor sometimes to rag them or sometimes to help them out. So what happens is that we give them a hunt, normally post lunch. So what we say is you divide into two or three teams, and each of the team gets a list of two things. One is a list of rooms. Now we've interestingly named our rooms for different destinations. In other cases it can be names of the rooms of your organization. Spots like ATM, washrooms, fire exits. Now these are the spots you need to find: cafeteria, coffee shops, coffee machines, photocopiers. So this is a list of all that. Then you get another page as list of some of the important people, good to know people in the company with their designations and the departments. So, and we don't tell which floor or bay they are. So the idea is you spend about 40-50 minutes easy. It's like a scavenger hunt. You have to come back meeting all these people, or these hunt for them, ask people help, and you run around and everybody can see you that you are the newcomers that day. And as you could see, 3 newcomers with headsets around, and they're roaming around checking their checklist, and they're finding people and have to get a picture clicked. So they have their iPads, they have to get their picture clicked as a proof to bring back that they saw the room or they hunted for that person, and the team which brings the max. And you could see badges they're wearing. So I thought that was very normal and a fun way of knowing people, and they come back also to share just about whom they met, but they also have to fill in what he does. So, and rest, I'm sure, with our intranet and the hierarchies, you anyway can't dump everything in on day one. So, and you have interactions with managers, so you will have the serious orientations of who's who, but this is more informal, which I've always heard people never forgot. It was far more powerful than taking them around to the 3 floors and just making them see different departments. And this also engages current people into the culture on how they should welcome the newcomers and give them an opportunity to get engaged rather than just expecting HR to do everything. This way, I think we engage the current workforce to share. So I've seen people come to my bay and asking me, okay, do you know where Gurpreet Bajaj sits? And I say, okay, maybe that's the person. So you play with them and you rag them a bit, but that's how they have a moment to laugh. But what's important is they get getting the culture very tough. This is the graduation. This is when they finish on the final day. So as you could see, we also did the certificates. I said why the certificate should be the same plain Jane ones. Don't do justice to what you've done the whole day. So as you could see, it represents what we stand for. It's an aeroplane with Grow written, which is our L&D brand. We've got the name of the person inside, which they write themselves. So again, it's personalized. That okay, I graduated on this date and I did drip on. And in this, I've seen everybody proudly pasting on their workstation. Otherwise, I've never bothered to even look at those certificates again. So this is again, and it gives people on the floor a quick way. Even if I'm walking, I see a quick plane being stuck. I say, okay, here's a new guy in the team there. So this also brings recognition, builds a very nice branding, and again continues the fun piece as we try to do things. And this is the group picture we do, and it goes on the intranet next day for everybody to see. And as you could see, they seem to have a good fun. They're just back with the race, I believe, towards the end of the day, and this is how they close. So some of the sound bites, some of the feedbacks which we get from participants. Of course, I'm not surprised that people are surprised, and the experience is still rated very high in terms of what and how to do and what they really expected and what they got, and helps them to understand a lot of things in a friendly manner. And I think it takes them with a very pleasant surprise. You still don't compromise on respect. You still don't compromise on information, but you still have quite a ball, to be literally. That was my goal when I was making this, to say, okay, I want people to call back their families and say, it's a hilarious place to be in, but a great place to be, and I'm proud of it. So I wanted everything, the pride, the fun, as well as the information to equally click on day one. Onboarding team, this is when we also inform, and this is a part of the game as well, and then there is an intranet link which we have done in a comic book format, not really a manual for people to read, where we've got key roles defined for the manager, onboarding facilitator, which is the trainer on day one, the buddy, which can the manager himself or a team member, and an HR representative, can be the recruiter who recruited him, or a person we have for each department as a general SPOC for information. So what we've done, these checklists and these best practice guides are there with everybody. People know. So for example, and there are tasks to be done pre-onboarding. For example, in this way, manager's task is to notify the team and relevant stakeholders of him joining and ask for support, planning his meetings, booking time to meet the guy, finalize and brief onboarding mentor if applicable, and he has to enroll in any immediate training program. These are the tasks you should do as a manager before your guy comes in. So instead of having that an expectation, we did an orientation and communicated this to all managers of what is expected out of them, and it's there on the intranet. It's told on day one, and it's further accentuated by orientation sessions. Then you've got checklists for month one, from assimilation to the team. Now this is all managers' work, introducing them the buddy, discussing the overall responsibilities, setting your short-term 30-day goals. We also have pre-designed templates for planning the meetings and sharing notes, and also inquire about the workspace to determine if new hire has everything. So manager is the first level of SPOC to raise any flags. For example, you might actually have a telephone issue or anything. Now it's the manager's imperative that he raises the flag, and then the relevant departments can take care. And then this is the last 60-day onboarding map from, and you could see the objectives on the left-hand side, which are very, very basic informational to start with, and moved on, and then moves on to role clarities and expectation on the role front, as well as interaction with the skip leaders and managers. and to formalizing the KRAs or the goals and IDPs. And you've got facilitators, months clarified, and broad, distinguished way of informing who is responsible for what. And this is just to summarize what we actually filled in with this. So business challenges when we started off was inconsistent knowledge transfer. We had low interactivity and engagement, which I said I felt on day one. Limited interaction and connect of new joiners with leadership. Now, let me talk about this. You may not have heard from me on what we do on day one. Actually, on day one, we only restrict the leadership connect to a lot of interesting videos which people see right from leaders, and they also do a matching activity of who's the leader. But initially, we used to have, and it's still debatable, that how good is it to call your CXOs or top leaders on every Monday to talk about your. This is what we were doing before. Actually, the feedback from both people and leaders weren't too positive in terms of the ROI of time, and of course the logistical hassle of getting the time and ensuring that happens. And you don't want your newcomers to wait, your CXO coming in 10 minutes late. So it just doesn't set the right precedence. So we said, okay, and also we didn't notice too many questions being thrown upon or interesting questions being thrown upon, and it was more of one way which leads weren't really enjoying also. So what we do is we, as a part of the 60-day onboarding, now I do a leaders versus rookies as a game. What we do is in between about 30 to 60 days, if you join Make My Trip, you get an invite to meet at most likely a cafeteria, which is a big colorful area. So you're about 30 or 40 of you to get together. We've got the CXO, the co-founders, or the leadership members, at least 2 or 3 of them joining us. So not just but 2 or 3. We actually have a good game of competition between, and we maintain that as a monthly contest between leaders and rookies. So last time we did some quick 1-minute challenges for about half an hour, where leaders were taken by surprise. They don't know what's going to come their way. Sometimes it's a game of table tennis, where people take shots at each other and people take turns. Sometimes we've just done an interesting athletics, where we've asked people to run within the office and come back with different tasks. And so this is what we do every month. But there has to be a contest where one wins and one. Sometimes it can be just a dartboard game. So we start with that. Post that, it's an open house with the newcomers of the month, not for that day. Where we also give some homework to the newcomers that they have to listen to about 50 or 100 customer calls, how many they can listen before they come to have a feel. That's a mandate, no matter what department you are in. Plus, we also expect them to go through Make My Trip applications, product, our apps, our websites. Also look at competitors' website, even similar companies, Flipkart, wherever they experienced e-commerce or travel website. Come up with key feedbacks on what they think as consumers, because they're still very borderline between employees and consumers. They're fairly fresh into the system. And also bring their work experience. And then they have an open house. They can throw up any question, feedback, suggestion to the leadership. And leadership can reflect that. Sometimes you've got some amazing ideas, from as simple as that, one website puts up Samsung ads. You might be maybe making some money, but that's not what I come for Make My Trip for. So that's interesting. So from a newcomer coming down there. So we do that. Also, then leadership can share some of the messages or suggestions or what they expect out of the newcomers. And that's how we end the day as lead versus rookies. Once a month, get all people together and meet them over an informal thing, followed by, let's say, tea or some drinks around. That's what we do from engaging to our leadership. And they meet the co-founders in a very informal environment. So this is what we do instead of a monologue to break the ice. So the innovation already shared. So of course the trip-on game is one big one. Then so basically the whole culture of technology, innovation, and fun comes right on your face on day one, by the way you experience day one. So nobody tells you we are high on technology. You actually just feel it, and that's what I didn't feel on day one. Holistic onboarding approach. So just instead of day one, we've got a 60-day roadmap. L versus R, and a 60-day user survey at the end, where we actually ask, did you meet your leaders? Did your KRAs happen? How was the support from local folks? How was the HR? How would you rate it against other onboarding? What can we do better? But I think the interesting part, not to get too excited with the technology, but I've tried to carefully blend it with the instructor and the human factor, because it's a very high touch company, and the guy is always there. You have iPad to share, and maybe just stop you in the middle and say, okay, can somebody tell me about this or X, or constantly have that human factor. So there was one choice given by the vendor that, okay, why don't you, since you've got an app, why can't you just send that link to everybody and let them be on their workstation and finish it? And I said, no, we don't want a completely learning tech program, because we are not dry. We are very, very high touch. So that's where we did like a nice blending. We've got games, we've got icebreakers, scavenger hunt. Now all this is not part of Trip-on game as such, but then you have to stitch everything together as a program to ensure the human connect is not missing, and technology doesn't overpower that. And a twin win, I guess. What did we win out of it? Of course, the motivation and engagement from day one was really cool. We've got 25% increase in engagement and SAT scores, basis of the surveys which we do from newcomers. Of course, higher learning and org agility from new talent in terms of role expectations and how they fit into the culture. Honestly, if somebody gets a shock, I think it's good for him to get a shock on day one. Or if somebody has to fall in love, he'd rather fall in love on day one. So I think that comes very clearly. You know how the things work. You know it's an informal environment. So it's like walk the talk. So you don't have a formal presentation saying we are informal and walk up to anybody and we are open doors. But that's how we actually make them meet people on day one. And also it's a stronger reinforcement of MMT employer brands. We've got a lot of referrals coming down, not just honestly because of the induction, but a positivity which goes through our newcomers to their circles. And we also got in a business today summarizing some of our wins there. And I think also importantly, transparent protocols around manager-employee relationship, purely because we set out the rules which weren't done very well before. And also there's a pressure because we're going to take the survey from your folks in 50, 60 days on how good or bad even your manager did. So that's going to roll back to you. And more importantly, I think what we love is the creativity and the ideas which are thrown upon to us. From CXOs, I think got some amazing feedbacks from people, which gets taken up and followed up post the meetings, which I don't think we normally get on day one, because day one you're just so busy filling up your form or just grappling with yourself that you don't even care what to ask as a change to the company. You haven't even experienced it. So that was good. We give them some time and then make them reflect to say, okay, I think work pressure is too much, and I think we are low on culture, high on culture. You can't say all that on day one actually. So it's more real. And the show must go on. So what can go ahead? Of course, we're not sitting on the laurels. In fact, I had a performance review discussion with my team who runs this yesterday, since we are closing on for the year. I think the key things on our agenda is the Trip-on 2.0, which means how we can work out on the app better, continued communication and internal buzz for culture assimilation is one. We're also looking at bringing the 60-day feedback to a 30-day feedback, because we've noticed a lot of areas of improvements sometimes get a little too late to work upon. So we're changing the things on the form and making that thing a little more simpler. And also the first day experience where we can bring in constantly engage the human factor on day one, which we are trying to improve upon. So I think that, and also I think changing of the content, which is very difficult in such an application to do. You need a dedicated person, who's owning this up with a vendor, because it's easier to change on a PowerPoint, but you need a little more effort. It's not impossible to work with a vendor and change a link on a game. It can be done. They give you that service, but somebody has to own that up. If a company figures that change, then you need to get it changed in the game as well, or the question can be different. So that it is an internal streamlining of new joiner policy and processes, where we more strongly also link it back to managers, award some of the best onboarding managers. So these are a few things which are on course to say how we further accentuate this program going forward. So that's it from me, team. I guess maybe we can have easily the next about 15 minutes for show, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Gurpreet. We do have some questions with us which lined up.
Sure.
To start with, we have Indu who wants to know what should be the approach to induction if the new joinees are mainly in the age group of or greater than 35 years.
Interesting. So I think age does play a factor, honestly, on that front. And we did think about that are we doing this because we are a young company and this may not work on the other. Honestly, I won't recommend like a copy paste here, which is definitely not recommended You must see what the culture is, what people are. But I think if the question is around should we use technology or not, uh, because the age group is being highlighted, I'm thinking that's the perceived challenge. Then I think, to be honest, you really have a look, but I think everybody uses technology today, and technology's definition is changing. I mean, I know everybody. I mean, all of us almost are hitting 35 and above. I see everybody with a smartphone. I think it also depends on if your question is more around technology, but I don't think you should worry about it because uh, if all of us have grown up from using an ATM to an SMS and now to a smartphone, as long as your age group is completely, I mean, maybe above 45, 50, and you have a clear mandate that it's a technology handicap there, then you may want to use more of a human factor and may not actually do an iPhone or an iPad app or even a technology front. But I think I think it doesn't really change much till the time, and age is a very less variable to comment on that. I'll probably have to have a look at the background of people, the industry where they're coming from. For example, if it's above 35% from a technology or from, let's say, FMCG, otherwise company, these are very normal scalable bases which we see as a sample. But I think if you really are working a company where you guaranteed know that it's a very PSU culture, which is not good or bad, but you have to appreciate that what it clicks, what it doesn't, then you must actually not use something which doesn't go well. But I think I would do a more deep check of what my current employees are because I can't do it with people who are joining to say what their preferences would be. I mean, why can't we do a quick pilot with the current workforce of the same age and see how it goes? Like we did test the league first.
Yeah, I agree. We have another question from Arushi. She wants to know how much investment was required to move into a gamified onboarding. Do companies need to spend a lot of money to get this done?
Interesting. So yes, there is an investment required if you compare this with a regular PowerPoint delivery, of course. So how it works is, let's say how it worked for us. If you're talking about the game itself, so you have vendors who will charge you once normally for the content. Like you work with them, you have to share the content. Mind you have to work very hard with them to actually do instructional design. So there is one-time charge which you normally pay for building a customized content, and then if you're getting it software as a service rather than as an enterprise product, in simple words, it's I can give you an app on a CD and you can just run that CD, but then you can't have users logged in and their names being flashed and everything. And like what we're doing right now, it makes each of us have a different user ID and everything, but that needs a sort of a learning management system. So most of the times bill you once for content and then bill you for per license. So right now also we pay per license for every newcomer wins, and the rates I think differ from your scale of company to what we are doing. Normally, in the e-learning industry, if you anything like this on a content building can cost you anywhere from a one-time cost of 1.5 to 2 to 3 lakhs, depending on the complexity of product you're looking at. I mean, do you want what level of animation or interactiveness do you want? I mean, I've seen some companies doing almost like an avatar-based thing. So they can share more, but I think anywhere from 1 to 3 lakhs you do spend, but that's one time for your cost. And then if you're setting it up on a server for the client where people can log in, then you need to pay per license. And that's called software as a service, where I don't have to worry about logging details, backend information being updated, servers and everything. It's just done like I just buy an off-the-shelf product from them afterwards. And then per license can vary from 500 to 2,000 depending on what kind of vendor are you engaged, what kind of scale are you giving him there. So that's the kind of investment. Plus we had also additional investments in infrastructure, like we bought these 15 iPads, but then I think that was purely worth the cost because remember we just don't use it for inductions. We also use it for with the other product teams to test it. why can't it be used for engagement events? You have games there, you can download a lot of stuff, use it in your cafeteria. So, but I thought that was not a compromise we wanted to do. We thought of shorter, smaller tablets, which will cost us 50%, but said no, we'll just kill the whole hard work with it. So that's the kind of investment paradigm we're talking about.
Yeah, Gurpreet. We have a question from Emma, who wants to know, what do you suggest for organizations where cameras, iPads are not allowed as part of policy? Is there something that you have in mind? Any suggestion that you have?
Oh, that's interesting. So cameras, iPads allowed even for training purposes?
Yes, I assume that Emma is asking for, suppose she wants to have something like this induced in her system, but cameras and iPads are not allowed. What would you suggest?
Oh, okay. So I'm sure. I mean, this need iPad, by the way. I mean, it is just a train. Like, you know what? Like the way we logged in right now, we all probably logged in through our desktops. So ultimately, what a user signs up into is just a hyperlink to a WebEx course like this, and instead of the PPT, you actually see games being thrown. So it can be equally done on any of the laptops or normal desktops. So if you don't have a camera or an iPad, that's all right. I mean, you can still do an e-learning gamified product with somebody and launch it over normal computers.
Oh, okay. All right. We have a question from Dominic. What are the roadblocks you faced when you were trying to gamify the learning? And how did you pitch this to the leaders? How did you get a buy-in?
Sure. So it's interesting where we did, of course, at the first place, it did have not really pushbacks, honestly, because the company here is very, very high on innovation. And in fact, they get excited with this idea. In fact, I was more cautious when I was pushing this, that okay, I'm sure that this is gonna sell if I can do it well. So I think it also depends company to company. I mean, the company here is very high innovation and technology, but I think some of the question marks rather than pushbacks which I got were that okay, I hope we don't lose the human factor. The moment you rely on technology and gamification, which I've already shared of how we try to address. So that went off well. The second thing was time, that how much time and investment does it need? And because it's technology, everybody also had a pushback to say, okay, I mean, are we depending, what if, why are we bringing so much of technology dependency, and hence, maybe fallouts. For example, we are at WebEx today, something might just crash, right? So a system which is purely controlled, human driven, why do you want technology, to probably play anything there? So these were some of the things, but I think maybe these were the only ones which they were only worried about the human factor, which might be compromised if not balanced well. Otherwise, in fact, I think the company was happy because it goes with both the things. It goes with company's DNA, which is a technology company. It also goes with the DNA of the people we hire today. I mean, remember, people who are coming to your boardrooms probably are not using stops at all. I mean, they are all on mobile, they are all on social networks, Twitters, they are all on iPads, they are playing games. So they're coming from that world. So it's high time we also wake up to say that okay, if looking towards people booking air tickets on or hotels or deals or even restaurants now on mobile, why are we expecting them to still sit and see a PowerPoint?
Thanks, Gurpreet. We have an question from Siddharth who would like to know, were you being able to maintain the same energy level for the next 90 days? Were there times where the excitement actually dies for a moment, when the employee gets back to business as usual? How can one make sure that, your managers are also aligned to the same vision and thought?
Sure. So I think that's a very question, and to be honest, realistically, it can never be the same. But we just try to ensure that, because it's so dependent on the local team, and it can be only imaginative to expect that okay, 50 people will have identical experience, not just on day one, but also on the others, because the team, the people, the managers' dynamics, the personalities, you're dealing with human beings, so you can't be consistent across different functions with different pressures. But what is consistent are the expectations, some of the basic, and I wanted to take to fundamentals first to say, okay, did you do your fundamentals like and it might sound very, very contrary to what we've started off. But we said, okay, let's ensure that manager and the guy sits and closes out on the goals on 30 days and 60 days, even if he can't wow him on experience. Because that's where I think the ball gets dropped a lot of times, where your basic fundamentals are not on, you're 6 months in the system, your goals are not drafted. Forget about employee engagement and the killer wow feeling you expect out of employees. They don't even know how to start their goals. So we said, okay, and that we did by one, communicating separately to managers on this front, linking the feedback we get from the person to the manager's feedback and rolling it up to the leader if there are any flags there. Also, I think, to be honest, also supporting the managers a lot. So we personally, when we ran sessions, managers do come up to us now. It's also about how approachable you are rather than just passing the buck to the manager to say, okay, you got a newcomer. You may not yourself be very clear on how the goals work and everything. You need our help, let us know. So that HR Spock plays that of participating with the manager to, of course, I mean, I won't to say when did your one-on-one happen. I mean, that we want to leave it. We don't micromanage that much, but we just ensure your first 30 days you do one. Because one, that's different, and second, doesn't go with our philosophy where we empower the team managers to do what they are. But the broad guidelines are set. Then programs like Leaders versus Rookies, which again bring the people back within that 30-60 and help them reflect, and in fact have a game with managers, interaction with leaders, where their managers can also join in, are also some of the ways where we engage. And thirdly, maybe I'm not shared this, but we also have a newcomers task set out once they join, that we do this annual, not annual, but biannual town hall meetings. Now, the performances which we do, like there are some skits and performances. Now, all of that is actually sponsored and directed by the newcomers of that 2 quarters. So, which is something unique. What we do also is that apart from their work and everything, they're also engaged continuously by HR by saying, okay, the next town hall is coming. You guys are broken up, and they do right from scripting to formalizing, and they get timeouts for that, and they put up a great show, and we're getting some hilarious standards of what we get out of them, and that's a great way again to welcome them within the first 6 months. So that's some of the ways we energy up.
Thanks, Gurpreet. We actually have many questions. Let's try and just take this question as the last, because we have to value time as well as 11:55. We have a question. Any suggestions on picking up vendors for trying to use a gamified approach? Any do's and don'ts that your experience calls for?
Yeah, sure. So I can share the name of the vendor we worked with. The vendor name is MindTickle. It's a very interesting company who work with special onboarding, and they've also got some engagement tools to work upon. There are others. I know Tata is one who do. In fact, there are so many now who are coming in terms of building the space. So I don't think there's a dearth of good vendors. In fact, from basic to expensive range, you might just get a lot of them. But I think some of the do's and don'ts, I think before you hit the vendors, I think we hit the larger question first. How much of technology do we want? What would be good? What will work? So I think for us, let's say we decide that, okay, we want technology, and technology doesn't mean, like we could have just done PowerPoints and still did the scavenger hunt and everything, right? And it still qualifies for a decent program. It gives more fun and thrill. So I think first decided, okay, how much technology we want. Do we want them completely gamified? Do we want partly gamified? How about just, like I've seen in Amex, we used to have PowerPoint, but we used to have a lot of activities. There was no technology specifically, but we used to have some jigsaw puzzles. We actually put the company timelines together and a lot of that stuff. So I think alternate as well. But if you think of technology, then I think you must look at the long-term aspect, the time, the resource, how much resources do you have. You do get vendors, but as I said, if you don't have people to work on the design, they can't do that for you. Or they'll do a body job because they don't know the relevance of which policy goes where. And so, for example, we did 5 policies, and he says, okay, I can make 3 questions. Tell me which policy should I pick up. Now that's where we come into the picture and say, okay, maybe the transport needs to be accentuated. We don't want him to miss this. So let's do that. And somebody from a content experience where he can summarize, for example, a lot of our stuff had to be put into 200 words. because that's what the platform allows. So you need a very competent resource as well to constantly work with the vendor for this approach. Plus, I guess idea is to get the buy-in before and probably do it on a test audience first.
Thank you so much, Gurpreet. And with all these informative facts, we are now going to wrap up today's webinar. I know there are a few more questions which are left unanswered, but we'll try and take them offline if possible. Once again, I'd like to thank the L&D Leadership League partners, Center of Creative Learning, Leadership, Cornerstone on Demand, Great Lakes Institute of Management, Chartered Institute of Management Accountants. Finally, a special thanks to Gurpreet for his time and invaluable information he shared with us. Thank you so much, Gurpreet, and thank you everybody at the webinar for being a very participative audience. We are sure to come back with many such more. Thank you very much. This concludes the webcast.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.